Hi, everybody. Welcome to Backstage. As we always say, it is wonderful that you take time to be with us, and we try to bring you the very best we possibly can so your invested time is worthwhile. And boys are going to be worthwhile today. You know, each time I introduce the guest, I go, and this person is, and this person is. I think Richard Crain has won every major award you possibly can in the profession. He is a recognized member of countless halls of fame. He's a gifted musician. He's an exemplary leader. He's got buildings named after him. And he's only 22 years old. So no, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. He has the spirit of a 22-year-old though. And of course, I think you all know this. Um, Richard Crain is the president of the Midwest Clinic, the granddaddy of all clinics, and he has agreed to give us a little of his time today. So, Dr. Crain, what is going on in Houston, Texas?
It was cold this morning. Well, the cold front down here is 43 degrees, but anyway. Like it is everywhere else, I'm afraid, the good and the bad. And there are many schools that are feeling the effects of this latest spike, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good stuff going on too.
Absolutely. Would you just give us a thumbnail sketch of your history? Just hit the highlights for us.
Well, there was no band program, no music program in the small high school I attended in South Texas until I was a sophomore in high school. I didn't really care to play football. There were no much helmets and pads in those days. But so the bandman just got his degree after World War II. He was a soldier in World War II, and he got his degree and came to Charlotte, Texas, and started a band. And in order to have enough kids on the field, we had to use 7th and 8th graders throughout my tenure there. And we finally built the band up and did pretty well, but our literature was like grade 2, of course. So that was my beginning in band. I started very, very late, but I fell in love with music, especially band music. There was a program in those days called Paul Laval and the Band of America, 48 band states in 48. And I love to listen to those programs on the radio. So there were 6 in my graduating class. That tells you how large my school was. And I've told this story so many times, people are getting tired of it, but I was in the top 30% academically. And so I went to college on a small scholarship. And then after my college career, I was drafted. I was telling this story to a bunch of college kids one time, and they said, well, what team drafted you? I wish it was. It was like on Sam's team. But the Korean War had worn down, and they were pretty particular about who they took. So I was without a job. I got actually a medical deferment because of a bad knee at that time. So I was without a job in October of 1956. I took a part-time job as a therapist at the San Antonio State Mental Hospital. And I want you to know that I was a staff member there and not a patient. And I had to convince the guards when I left, because it's like a prison, you know, people in there at different levels of profound need. So, and then tragically, a band director was killed in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, at this 3-lane highway in the Rio Grande Valley. It goes all the way from Brownsville to McAllen and beyond. And so you can camp out or turn or pass or whatever you want to do in that middle lane. But unfortunately, this gentleman was in the middle lane. It was head-on collision anyway. So they needed a band director, and I went out and took a look at it with some buddies. What are they going to do? I was the only warm body in the state. So they hired me at $2,900 a year.
Wow.
And I started actually observing in December, and then I started in January. So my first part of my life was filled with all sorts of challenges. First of all, I was 22 years old trying to deal with kids who were dealing with a tragedy. And the gentleman was doing a terrific job and had built the band up from a third division and was putting things together, but he'd only been there a couple of months. So I had to deal with that, plus the fact that I knew nothing about how to do a band. My college teaching was not the greatest. I don't blame my college that much, but my first few years perseverance was the key word for me. Then in 1958, with some other names that are very familiar, like L.M. Snavely, Luther Snavely, and some others like that, and Bob Pizzetti from Brownsville High School at that time, maybe not so much, went to Bannock Creek University, and probably the most significant summer I've ever spent at Bannock Creek. It's just wonderful. And anyway, there were a lot of big name people there at Bannock Creek that summer. And then after 4 years there, we finally brought it up from about a third division, and we made a first division at UIL. But the finest bands in Texas were in the Rio Grande Valley at that time. That's an absolute statement. And so I learned a lot just by osmosis. But I also, this is a point I want to really make to young directors. About my second year, and we hadn't done very well, and I was kicking bus tires and blaming everybody in the world. And my first mentor came up to me and said, have you ever thought about asking somebody to come in your band hall and listen to your band? Have you ever thought about asking for help? You're out there making yourself an island like you know everything. And I thought to myself, I thought I did know everything, but I knew nothing. And that was an epiphany moment for me, Tim, and that I learned how to ask anyone. You know, Freddie Fresnel was asked one time, why don't you do more of this or that? And his answer was simply said, because nobody asked me. They were afraid of his stature and his prominence. And so they were afraid to ask him. You can ask anyone for help. It's the greatest mentoring profession in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And you need to be a mentor too. I mean, I'm talking to young directors. So after 4 years, my former high school band director opened a music store in Temple, Texas, in Central Texas, and said, there's a really fine junior high open here. And so I went up, took a look at it, and decided that I would take it. It was a raise in salary from $2,900, which is, I would take that. But I inherited a terrific band program, and actually my second year there, we were able to rank third in the junior high honor band process in Texas. So, but I inherited a very good band program. But it was there that I met the love of my life in church, and then we eventually, after 4 years, moved to Belton in Central Texas. I was there 15 years. I walked in one day and I said, Gail, have you ever heard of Spring, Texas? She says, no. And I said, well, they need a band director. And Kevin Sedetall's father was real active in this. He was a former band director there. And so I went to Houston. We went down, took a look at it, and she was on her way to get her doctorate and be a college administrator. And she never hesitated. She said, let's go look at it. And from there, she went to a middle school typing teacher at Wells Middle School. God love her. I couldn't have done anything in my life without her. And I want to make sure everybody understands. You met her, you know, and I couldn't have done anything without her. So and then 3 years as a band director in Spring. I went there as Spring High School band director on 2 campuses, which was a challenge. Freshman to sophomore, junior, senior. And then after 2 years, we created the South Campus, became Westville High School. The director that was hired there left in the summer, so I took it and opened Westville High School. And then the next 18 years I spent as the director of all the music programs and some other programs in the Spring School District. Retired in 2000. And then I got busy with jobs that don't pay anything. But I love it. And I've really, I guess we'll get into this sooner, but that's sort of my life. I retired in 2000 and I went on the Midwest board in 1992, became president in 2008, 2009, and my first year to preside was 2010. And this is my 10th year I guess, as president.
Well, so you were real lucky because wherever you went, the band got good just as you got there, yeah? You knew just when to catch that updraft, did you?
Yeah, yeah. There was a water fountain over there, and all the kids were supposed to drink out of it. You know, so uh,
Well,
well, the first band I inherited a very not very good band program with a lot of other issues, but I inherited a good band there. I had to do some work in Belton, uh, but I had learned a lot about that. I'd get help and know who to go to for
well,
help.
you took Belton the Rose Parade, yeah?
Tournament of Roses Parade
Yeah.
went out in 1973 and came back in 1974. And we were on 6 buses, and I would never recommend that. But this was 1953 in a small town, and one of the awards I got later that spring was Man of the Year from the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce president said, "This is the first time we've ever given this award to someone that took so much money out of this small town." And so anyway, I was very honored with that. But of course, you know, so many people, the kids and the parents and everybody raised money to take that trip. But that was a great thrill. A lot of those kids in those days had never been out of Bell County, much
Yeah.
less gone to out of state and to that. When we marched a Disney parade and walked out there and those lights come on, I could hardly get them to play. Oh, you know, they were looking around like deer in the headlight. But that was a rewarding moment too, to see, you know, that you're accomplishing more than just playing some songs there for them.
You know,
Uh,
you have an international viewpoint of things going on, and we're dealing with this crazy virus thing. And I know the people that are watching this are the very best in the profession. That's why they continue to watch it. What kind of advice, Dr. Crain, do you have for those people that are trying to make it work under these circumstances? Any good thoughts?
well, I think the best people in the world to deal with it are instrumental music teachers, band and orchestra directors. And at the beginning, everybody was wringing their hands. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. What are we going to do and everything? And then they stopped and said, okay, let's get to work to fix it.
Yeah.
And now they've taken advantage of uh, resources like technology, and they're observing the protocols and making it work. Tomorrow I'm announcing the Region 9 UIL Marching Band contest here. And I just created a speech. I just felt moved that I needed to say something about the kids and how they have gone about addressing this, so that we're not going to be defeated by the virus.
Yeah.
We're going to overcome the virus and show you what we can do. And I was watching a band rehearse last Friday, and it was amazing what they're doing, all within the confines of parameters of those strict guidelines that are in place in medical guidelines. The sad part, Tim, is that some kids are being quarantined or actually ill with it and won't be able to. I was talking to a mother over the weekend, and her son is devastated because he's having to quarantine. He was exposed to it, and all the work he had put in, he's not going to be able to do it,
Yeah.
participate. And so all of his hard work, because they're only going to go one performance.
Yeah.
Some of the bands will try to go on to area and state, the next levels. But I think it's amazing how creative our profession has been, and how the kids have bought into it and said that we're not going to let this. Unfortunately, there have been some that we've lost.
Yeah.
I know one director in the North Texas area who said, I just can't deal with this. And he was so great with kids, very talented, wonderful band program. And those are the sad things, outcomes. There are enrollments in secondary music programs trouble me.
Yeah.
And that's not because the directors are doing a great job, is its parents are unsure of what's going on, and all the news seems to pile up on itself.
Yeah.
That worries me, and unfortunately, some freshmen, for instance, in this band program, the ninth grade parents are withholding their kids from marching band. They're participating. And then the hybrid thing, how do you prepare when half of them are not, or 20% even, are not in class and spacing? I went to Sam Houston State University a couple of weeks ago, and it's inspiring to see that what they have on the stage, their space, their distancing, they have bags on the horns and everything. Christine Cumberledge from HEB school district sent me a photo about how they're dealing with it. Those kids are spaced doing their distancing, and everything is taken care of there, and they're working hard and making progress. In her case, she's performing at TMEA in February. She's one of the programs that was chosen to do there. So there have been some losses. I fear loss in enrollment may affect staffing in the future. We'll just have to see. But it's been so inspiring of what our profession is doing. They're going to come back.
Yeah.
They're going to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
David Brandon, for instance, at Duncanville High School, Title I school, he says, I think I'm going to be a better teacher now. This has taught me some lessons of how to use these and how not to do these things. I don't think I answered your question. We don't know what the final results. You know, on the being on the Midwest Planning Board, we don't know what we're going to do. We're just going on faith, and but we have contingency plans. Will we have an event in 2021 or not? And that's why, unfortunately, we're doing a virtual this year, which you're a part of, and we're going to see how that works out. But a lot of people, by the way, have been a part of that and working hard on it and contributing as yourself. And I think that we're going to have a great production for people to see and capture as much of a live event as we can.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. And there's some benefits to that because they're going to see highlights from a quarter of a century of the creme de la creme, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, there's some good things. I'm gonna take a bit of a left turn on you here because I mean you've been to the well. Well, you're the gatekeeper of the well. Let's be honest about this. And I look at young directors particularly, and I go, okay, here's somebody who's knows the ins and the outs of all this. What just one piece of good advice for young teachers who are dealing with this now, but still want to stay on the journey of being a band orchestra director, etc. What are your thoughts?
Well, persevere. I learned that word early in my career, and I've remembered it, and it's resonated ever since. But seriously, you have to stay at it. You have to persevere, and you have to understand this is the greatest profession in the world. I can think of my son is in business. He was in band. He says, Dad, when you go home every day, you can point to something, someone you help, someone that you encourage. I sit here and I do all these things, and he's very successful, by the way. And he made that comment to me one time, and I just think it's a great profession. I'm not sure I'm going to answer your question, but never ever stop learning about your craft. I'm 86 years old, and I'm not using myself as an example, but every day, if I go into a middle school band hall these days, I'm amazed at the strategies that I wished I had utilized when I was starting out. These people are so creative, and learn to listen and listen to learn. That's not original with me, but a lot of times I don't think we listen. Those around us, to kids, to parents, administrators, whatever. Mentor others and find a mentor. The bottom line, and I hope this is what it is, and I've talked to you about this at Midwest, I know how you feel, that everything we do at Midwest is directed toward teachers. But the bottom line is our goal is that they will trickle down, will affect students. That's the bottom line. And kids have to be the bottom line. Their welfare, their learning, everything about them has to be the bottom line. And there are those of us, I witnessed this when I was on an administrator and other academic disciplines. There are those who present information to kids. Then there are those who have the passion, the dedication to transfer knowledge. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
One superintendent, that's the thing that was resounding to me, that resonated to me was after he said that, I thought, oh my goodness, let me go back and see how many times I just presented information. And you get frustrated because your kids can't do well in this academic area because all they're doing is throwing it out there, get it or not get it. But in our profession, you can't do otherwise. You have to transfer knowledge. And that's one of the most basic needs and qualities that I think we need to have. Uh,
So the culture itself is pretty important. The music
Absolutely.
culture that you create in the band hall, the orchestra hall, whatever. Yes.
Absolutely. When I go into band halls, you can tell how really successful they are in
Yeah.
every category because the kids are all end up down there eating lunch or
Yeah.
whatever. It's their home. And that's the
Yeah.
thing about it. I know of a Title I school that is just the most biggest challenge I can ever imagine teaching in that place. And where do the kids find solace and comfort and
Yeah.
safety? It's in the band hall.
Yeah.
That's
It's their
good.
family. It's sometimes it's stronger than their family. It's a
Absolutely.
you know.
Don't go there. When you have single parent homes,
Yeah.
I know this director. I used to sub for him at our church orchestra. He says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Crain, but I've got to take little Jody or whatever to the child welfare. She's been kicked out of her home. She has no
Mm.
home.
Yeah.
All she has is her clothes on her,
Yeah.
and that is not that is typical,
Yeah. Yeah. That's not unusual.
unfortunately. But
Right.
that's just one of the challenges. So what you just said, yeah, sometimes more than the home environment.
It
And
really is.
not criticizing that because there are many reasons where parents are struggling, especially these days, but still, it's an area of safety and comfort.
It's their family. Take another little left turn on you here, and this is obviously because Backstage is part of Consumer, and I think all the time that music education and music industry should work together, and we're all headed towards the same destination. What are your thoughts about how important it is, particularly now, for the music education world and the music, the whole industry of music to work together? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you don't have time. We we could not operate Midwest without the industry. I mean, that's a given. It's not even worth discussing because of everything that Consumer does for us, and that's much, and the other areas of industry. We could not do this virtual. And one of the most rewarding things of the virtual Midwest is that we thought we'll have about 50 exhibitors come on with what other associations have done. And lo and behold, we have 150
Yeah.
individual
Yeah.
companies that have signed on, registered as an exhibitor for this. And one prominent exhibitor was taken through their exhibit hall virtual and said, "I've never seen anything like this." So it behooves everybody to go there. First of all, it's entertaining. There's a lot of entertainment things in there, features, and but there's so much in there that directors can benefit from. But they signed on, and we have 150 different for a virtual non on-site event. I think that is absolutely stunning to us is what they've done, and we tried not to take advantage of it. Going back, everything that people see at Midwest, if it's made out of wood, iron, or whatever, it's been given to us, provided to us by companies like Consumer. I mean, obviously, and plus sponsoring so many different areas and features, badges and lanyards and banners and go on and on. So absolutely, I could go on and down, and it's been so much so rewarding for me personally to get to know some of these companies that I never would have the opportunity to really get to know publishers and Winger, for instance, and certainly manufacturers, and it's been fun for me. And I always like to use the word partner because I just feel like we're
Yeah.
partners in this venture and this journey, and not just a sponsor. That's the importance of, and absolutely, we could not operate Midwest without the participation, the generous participation of companies like Consumer.
Yeah. As president of the Midwest Clinic, do you just kind of hang around and then show up at the event? What, how much time do you dedicate? And I know it's 21 hours a day, but what's it like being the president of the granddaddy of all clinics?
You pretty much nailed it. I just try to show up and not have Tony Garcia penalize me or something. And I love that, Tony. Just kidding. In fact, he's a Consumer
Yeah, he's one of our
Felicia,
artists, Bach artists. Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. Uh, okay, this is going to be very personal, and I'm very sorry to do this. I'm sort of being from Texas. Midwest was a Midwest regional geographically. So when I came on the board, I felt like so honored just to be on the board because I felt like I was an outsider geographically. And then this God intervention and the way things go, well, then when I was elected president in 2009, then the impact really hit me. But for me, it's not a job. It's certainly not a salary position. I don't want it to be. But it's a love. It's the love of my life in profession. Uh, all weekend long, I've been working on something about Midwest. I don't have to. I just want to. I just feel a great responsibility in making sure that I can provide the board with all the information they need to make decisions. And then all the other creative, the listening, surveying exhibitors, surveying directors. What do you, our constituency? What do you need most now in this? And I hope that we're addressing that. For instance, how do you teach during the COVID? I hope we're addressing that in our virtual. A lot of the clinics have been selected because of that. And while I'm on it, we're profoundly disappointed that the invited ensembles cannot perform at the 2020 Midwest Clinic. It's not their fault. We're profoundly disappointed, but we're glad we will see them in Chicago in 2021 at the 75th anniversary Midwest Clinic. And but this is a labor of love for me, and I'm so honored. I cannot describe how honored I am to serve on the board and to serve as president. And I have gotten to meet so many people I would never in our profession that are so wonderful. I would never have gotten to meet before, including Tim Lutzenheiser and Paul Lysen.
And they've gotten to meet you too. So this is a win-win for sure.
Actually, I did know you before this.
Oh, I'm telling you, when I read all the accolades of your life, they pale in comparison to your personality and how generous and gracious you are. And I know you avoid every compliment, but I've got you cornered now. And literally, there is not a time. And for everybody listening, when you have the status of Richard Crain and, maybe an email every 4, I've never made a call that he hadn't answered the phone or called right back. And boy, that speaks volumes about who you are, Dr. Crain. You take care.
Well, I'm very blessed, and I give our Lord so much credit because of my beginning. I could have given up, really, easily, because of my training. I came from such a small school. I never played anything harder than Pacific Grandeur by Ola Vedoti. That's before your time, Tim. But Paul Yoder pieces, and I'd never done anything more difficult than that. And then I played in probably the loudest college band in the world. And then to go out and marching, we marched guide ride in college. You know what that means? Some days it took longer to get to the 50-yard line. And then when I went out, bands in the valley were marching a measured step. What's that? Well, they were marching 8-5, and they were brilliant. There was a gentleman in the valley named Joseph Frank. And he came, I was in there a couple of years, and he said, I'm moving to a town in North Texas. I said, oh, I said, where is that? And he said, Richardson. And we said, we never heard of that. And the rest is history. He went there as one school, small school actually, out in the sticks then. And the rest is history. And it became really the standard for the state and maybe the nation of the quality of programs that they had there. He was a wonderful musician and a mentor too. I got sidetracked, Tim.
That's great. That's great. I mean,
But I've been blessed, and I'm the first one to say that because I've been to the bottom. Been to the bottom, and then I got to be at the mountaintop.
If you
and
know,
I told the medical kids when I got my doctorate there.
Yes.
My honorary doctorate, I told them that. I've been to the mountaintop. It's worth it.
If you know a substitute for time on task, please share it. It's time on task, right?
That's it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to throw out this like a little word round thing. I'm going to throw a word at you. Give me a couple sentences on how important this is in our profession. Well, probably every profession, but certainly in our profession. So here we go. Communication.
I probably got in trouble more times than not because I didn't communicate correctly or at all. I had a principal one time at Spring High School, Bobby, and he said, Crain, only thing I ask of you is that I never want to be surprised. And I think a lot of us forget that. I knew a guy in San Antonio that got fired because he did something thinking it was, well, it's okay, I'll talk to the principal now. Well, the principal wasn't real pleased about it, and he got fired, lost his job because he wasn't communicating. Yeah. But communication to parents, communication to the kids themselves, to the custodians, they're going to save your life one of these days. Yeah. When you can't get in and you turn the alarm off and it doesn't go off or whatever. But communication is really, I guess, one of the basic fundamental that we need to learn in life as well as in our profession.
It never ends.
If that makes sense to you.
Well, yeah, it's the fuel. Okay, here comes the next one. Trust relationships.
Well, you can't get very far if you can't trust the people around you, first of all, and your staff and everything. You have to be on the same page. So there takes a lot of communication there. You have to also get your trust relationships with the professionals, the students, the parents, and all that. So they kind of tie in there. But you yourself have to act in such a manner that you command trust, I think. So there's several ways to interpret the word trust, but certainly I've run into that throughout my career.
Well, we're a profession about relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody. Okay, here comes your next one. Ready? Drum roll. Loyalty.
You have to demand loyalty. And a lot of that comes by the way you treat people, your leadership. Right. When I say demand, I think it's easy to demand if you're the kind of leader you need to be. And I look at you and I look at others, how you handle situations. But I even loyalty to the custodians and to the bus drivers, mm-hmm. to all the rest of the staff and other teachers, but to your kids too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're representing your kids and they need to trust you and you need to trust them. Man, my students got me out a lot of jams and a lot of times, like inside reading room. But I don't know. Loyalty is just one of those human traits that we all need to have, first of all, before we do anything. I'm not sure I answered that.
Well, I told you this 30 minutes would go by quickly, and it certainly has. So I want to, one last thing, because I mean, we could do an anthology just back and forth, and I would love that. We'll do that someday. What piece of advice can you give everybody about the future of our profession and thoughts, and then we'll let you go back to your other stuff.
Well, we have the greatest discipline in the world to teach, for one. So we've got a lot of stuff on our side. I worry about young teachers who are not prepared spiritually and mentally as well as professionally to go out and realize what they're going to get. It's not going to be all roses. I mean, you're 4 years in a university band, so everything is set. But you have to persevere. And I'm sorry to harp on that word, but if it hadn't been absolutely sticking with it and persevering toward your goals, staying with it, kind of have the discipline and the dedication to do that. You have to do that because it's not going to be smooth sailing. I have some personal examples in my family where if it hadn't been for them, they would get knocked down, but they got right back up. It's like that boxing thing. I heard a Baptist, an old preacher talk about that you'd hit that, whatever it was, and it had on a bendable rod, and it'd always come back. And one of my sons was that way, and I've seen other kids who are that way. But I just think I've seen kids' lives completely transform by being in band. I'm sorry. and it's the greatest profession. You have to believe in it, and and then the musical rewards of making wonderful music together. When we started the National Country Band Festival, some of the most competitive band directors in the world that I was afraid they may get out there and they start fighting one another. No, they got out there and they were sharing ideas, and that's one reason we have the chat room, by the way, and going on and helping one another. And I'm not trying to dance around it. You just have to stick with it, and it's worth it. I guarantee you, the rewards cannot be measured.
Yeah, your life will make a huge difference. Dr. Crain, thanks so much for giving us your time. We're certainly going to get you back here to do this again. And to all of you who were fortunate enough to be with the man, I know you're taking away a lot. And the cornerstones of what he shares are the cornerstones of success as well. So I love you, my dearest friend and mentor and hero. And we'll see you again soon. And we'll see everybody at the Midwest Clinic.